Welcome everyone, it's Michael DeHaan from Care to Grow, and I've got Beate Sifkovits with me. How are you, Beate?
I'm very well, thank you. And you?
Really well, really well. And Beate is a part of the Women's Empowerment series, so I'm grateful for you coming on board and I suppose sharing some of your stories. And it is about empowerment, it's about women using their voice and visibility. So I'm really excited to learn more about your, I suppose, journey and sharing that with women to look at their life and how they might be able to make some change.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and I want to help, but that's kind of my mission, to help women really identify what it is they truly want to do, they love doing, and actually then doing that.
Wow.
So I'm excited to be here and hope it can maybe trigger some thoughts and help people maybe have a little shift in their mindset on that's possible for them as well.
Yeah, so, and I want to share, so you're a transformational mindset coach, so hence the transformation that you just shared with us. And you're the founder of All Boss. So I think that sort of resonates with, being the boss of your future in a sense, or, running your own business. There's something that really resonated with me. So we caught up a while ago and you talked about, I suppose, in the corporate world, trying to be someone else. And it's sort of a common theme that I'm seeing. So I'll sort of dig a bit deeper into that in a moment. And the other thing that really created an interest within me anyway is that you're working with a lot of mums or a lot of women that are doing this side hustle. A lot of times the side hustle might be something they're really passionate about, and maybe that's what they should be doing there. So whether that's COVID driven, but I'd really like to unpack that and explore that a bit as well. But what I'd like to do is get to know you. So just a bit of a background about you personally, so people can sort of connect with you, and then we'll go through some other stuff.
Great. So I'm originally Austrian, but I now live in Dubai. I lived in the UK for 10 years, so I've been a bit of a global citizen. And I worked in the marketing field for about 15 years. And most recently, I worked for Bacardi, the drinks company. I was heading up Grey Goose and Bombay Sapphire for Middle East and Africa. So it was a glamorous job, it was fun. I was traveling the world, going to Cannes Film Festival, like glamorous parties, traveling business class all the time to Bermuda, to South Africa, to everywhere. And it was fun, but I think that was almost a little bit of the temptation to keep going with that because of all these perks. This just kept me in that for so long, even though I think even years earlier I recognized that it wasn't quite right for me. I remember we were going through this kind of career building workshop it was called Shape Your Career, that HR had organized, and we were working on our vision, our mission, our purpose, our values and everything I wrote down had nothing to do with the job I was doing.
Wow.
So I was like, something might be wrong here.
That's an eye-opener. Yeah.
Exactly. But because of all that, it's a good salary, it's all of these kind of temptations that just keep you in that. I read a quote the other day saying that salary is the biggest drug on the planet, because it keeps you tied to, whatever it is that you might not even enjoy or do, and over years, over decades sometimes.
It's almost a handcuff. A lot of people call it a handcuff. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that, I think that feeling had been fostering for a while, for probably longer than I actually realized. And then after that experience at this workshop, I got a lot more aware of it, and I was a lot more, okay, what am I going to do? And then it got to a point where I knew I had to make a change, but work was just so overwhelming, so stressful, huge pressure. I was getting to burnout. I was constantly traveling. I was exhausted. I was like, if I don't take the time for myself, I'm not going to be able to find what it is that I do want to do, because you need some kind of space for it to evolve, and for you to have that mind space for you to figure out what it is you want to do. Sure. If you're in that stressful corporate life, and I recognized, I was like, okay, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take 3 months, 6 months. And I was actually already talking to other teams in Europe about potentially joining a team in Europe at Bacardi. But the second I moved, I allowed myself to have that space and to explore what it is I wanted to do and what really fits with me and what suits my values. That's when I think even after a month or two, I was like, there's no way I'm going back to a corporate job. And also after taking that leap, it was kind of like I started almost straight away, started meeting the right people, the right direction, things opened up. And I was like, I could have never even planned this. And if I'd stayed in my role, none of this would have happened. I wouldn't have met those people. I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I was given. So it really helped me along that path. But it's not necessarily, and a lot of my clients don't take that big leap. It's not about necessarily taking that big leap, but it's taking the time, that reflection, and that giving yourself time to be and recognize and sit and get bored, for something to evolve and to like, oh, I like this idea. This is something I've always been interested in. Let me just look into that. Let me do a bit of research. And it's taking those tiny, tiny steps that will actually then come into a big leap, but it doesn't have to be the way I did it, just like quit and like come out. But I see a lot of people just like starting that initial move, and it can be small things, and eventually it gains momentum, and then you see you're actually much more enjoying this, and this is actually giving you so much more. And then when the time is right, it's an easy transition from one to another. Wow, it's taking that time and taking that.
And I think that's a great analogy, and thank you for sharing, because I agree with you. COVID has slowed people down, but even before that, it's taken the time to listen to yourself, and not to be what I call on autopilot. So you might be a mum, or you might be in corporate, whatever, and you're working 24/7, and you just stress, and you wake up the next day and you do the same.
Exactly. That's exactly where I was at. And I deep down knew that it wasn't right for me, but there was no time, any space to figure out what else it could be. What I see a lot with mums as well is that they're so focused on the family that they are not creating a vision for themselves. So they can't often, so one of the things I really focus on with my clients straight away is, what's your vision? Where do you see yourself in 5-10 years, in a year's time? And a lot of mums struggle with that, because it's, well, my husband might get a job there, and the kids are, they need to go to school, they need to do this. It's like, no, where do you want to go? What do you see for your future? Kids are going to move out at some point. And then what? So I see that a lot, because it's always been surrounded, the family's always been put first, and then it takes time to start thinking in that way. Like, what do I want? Who am I? Who do I want to be?
And isn't that interesting you say that, because there's a lot of talk now about women's empowerment, and it's even around the sort of legacy that people are leaving. So it's really saying, what's my passion? And if I go out and serve myself, serve my passion, and change the world in things that it's important to me about, that'll show up, and your children will, potentially follow the same vein. So again, it's sort of creating that change that we're all talking about. So
definitely a great example to set for children as well, to honor that gift that you have inside of you. We all have it. We all have something that we're passionate about, that we're good at, and that's going to contribute not just to us, but the people around us and the world at large. And if you don't honor it, it's wasted time.
And you might have answered it already in regard to sort of that stress being in corporate and maybe a bit of burnout and whatnot, but was that when I heard you before, trying to be someone else and sort of that backfired? Is that what you were relating to? Is that
yes, in some ways, but there was another element to it that I started recognizing. So that kind of the more stressful work got, the more I felt like I saw these other people around me who were doing an awesome job, and they were getting promoted, they were getting, supported. So I felt like I had to be more like them, which obviously they were maybe fostered more because they were they were performing in a way because that was aligned to them. That was their strength. That was their passion. That they loved doing that. So they were shining. And I felt like I wasn't shining. So I need to be more like them. So I tried to be more like them and take on certain traits and certain ways of doing things and certain ways of showing up. And that just completely backfired, like I said. And things just started getting like completely out of control because I wasn't completely who I am, trying to be someone else, not using my skill set and my strengths. They were just getting completely neglected, not living by my values. It was just chaos. So that probably also added to that burnout, where I was just like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people would resonate with that. So again, thank you for being so open and honest about it, because there'll be a lot of people out there that can really resonate with showing up and being who they think they need to be in that culture, in that corporation. And really, as I said, this is all about using your voice and visibility and being authentic to yourself. So again, thank you.
Owning who you are.
Yeah. So
I think especially women, more so than men, feel like they need to show up in a certain way. Because they feel like they, in order to be able to compete with women, with men, they need to almost act a bit like that, and they need to be stronger. And there's always, female empowerment, which is great, but it's not. It doesn't mean be like a man. It's mean own your femininity, own the skills that you have, and the difference that you bring to the table. Not by trying to be like them, because then you're just losing all the contribution that you have to give.
Yeah, no, very powerful, very powerful. So I'm going to ask a question. So you're talking to, mums and a bit of side hustles and things like that, or supporting them to understand their journey longer term. What advice would you give a young woman? So before she gets into that relationship and goes down the path of being a mum or not being a mum, but what sort of advice would you give someone earlier in life to start understanding who they are and their dreams, their passions, and what to do about it? Because it can be quite scary for a young 20-year-old woman, as an example.
I think get really clear about who do you want to be, and how do you want your future to look like? How do you want to be in that? And that, of course, might change, but start reflecting on that. Start reflecting on what are the values. Does a 9-to-5 job suit you perfectly because you like that structure, you like that routine, or are you a bit more of a free spirit? But you do like some of the elements that a corporate job brings. There's always ways that you wouldn't even know are out there that might combine the two. But once you start being really clear about what it is, what you want, and have a vision, almost like a destination for yourselves, then things often kind of start showing up for you in that way. So I always kind of use the example of, you wouldn't get into a car and drive around aimlessly with, no destination, unless I've heard it works quite well with kids to put them to sleep. But otherwise, you would always have a destination in mind before you got in the car. And if you didn't know where you were going, you would use Google Maps or Waze. You'd get a roadmap to get there. But so many people forget to even think about what their destination is. So end up kind of driving around aimlessly, feeling lost, not having a sense of direction, and just taking day by day and hoping for the best. But I would say hope is great, but it's not a great strategy.
So how does someone young find their passion? And I was reading something yesterday, and it sort of started to go down that pathway, because a lot of people don't know what their passion is, in a sense, and it's a lot of times how they're brought up. So they put themselves last and whatnot. So but I heard them talking about just what's something there that does excite you, like looking at little things, which I think you shared before. Is that the way you look at it as well? Some things there that light you up?
So one of the things I always ask my clients is, look back and what were you doing in your free time between the age of 7 and 14 or 7 and 12? So what, if you were left alone to your own devices, what were you doing? What did you really enjoy doing? So that usually gives you a clue. A clue gives you your hobbies. That's something, and it doesn't mean you need to make your hobby a profession. If you really enjoy playing football, that doesn't mean you need to become a football player. But it's something like, what do you enjoy about that? Do you enjoy the team spirit of it? What is it that you enjoy about your hobbies? And one of the other things is like, speak to other people, because ourselves, and that's why I obviously recommend having a coach, but because you often can't see the wood for the trees.
Yeah.
And I very much remember that in my journey. I've been in the personal development for about 10 years, and I've spent lots of weekends, holidays, my evenings reading, doing courses, doing retreats, learning to go through my own journey. And I generally once thought, you know, when the people said, "Oh, what's your hobby?" I was like, "Well, I feel really passionate about my own personal development."
Yeah.
But I can't make that a job. Like I couldn't even see that could
Yes.
potentially turn into something that could be my job.
Yeah.
And now, you know, doing all these courses is part of my job.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can't. It was almost like once I finished, I left the job. It was like it was always there, but I just couldn't see it.
Yeah.
So working with someone, even, you know, your friends, ask them, what do you think I'm good at? What do you appreciate about me? What do you see myself doing a lot? What do you see me being good at? Having those conversations. And it doesn't mean you need to take that on, saying, oh, this person thinks I should do that, so I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
But it might trigger some thoughts.
That's a reflection, yeah.
Exactly.
And that's the first time I've heard of that. And I just think that's an amazing opportunity for young people to have those conversations. You mightn't like what you hear back, because depending, but I just think that's a real creative way to actually look at someone else looking at you and saying, what do you think my strengths are?
Exactly. And you will hear lots of different things, and you take out of that what really resonates with you. There will be some things like, yeah, that's right, and some things like, don't think so.
Yeah.
And on the flip side of that, if you do really know what it is you want to do, you really know what your passion is, and people are telling you, no, you can't do that, you can't make that a job, or that, you know, gotta go into, you know, becoming a lawyer because that's safe, that it can, you know, pay you lots of money, rather than, and I'm making it up now, become an artist. But if you know what it is, what's really in you, what's driving you, then honor that, go for it, no matter what other people say. And you will find your own way. And you know, there's this saying, you take one step, the universe takes 3 for you, in that right direction. You will not, if anything, you'll look back 10 years later, it's like, I wish I'd done it earlier. So if you know that, then stick to your guns and pursue it. And if you fail, get back up and do it again. Yeah.
And that's that resilience bit that you, I think, talk about, and I've seen it on LinkedIn. That it's a word there that I think it's sort of lost its, you know, shine, so to speak. But it's such a brilliant, because people get a little bit lost or dejected if they, you know, can't do something fairly quickly. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. No, I think it's been a great interview. I knew it would be. I knew there'd be things in there that you'd share, and people listening to this will get their own bits from that. But I certainly took away some really good parts of it. So very grateful for that. And again, thank you for adding value to our series. Very grateful.
And if anyone wants to dive in a little bit deeper into the vision, if they haven't taken time out to do that, I run a monthly webinar for free to just kind of get started on it's an hour and a half, and you'll really get a better idea out of it, of what it is you want to achieve in the future.
Excellent. And that'll be on the interview, so that your details will be on there. So that's great. And thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
No, pleasure.
Like I said earlier, I can talk about this all day, every day. So
I can imagine.
Get in touch.
Thank you. It was great to actually have the interview. Thank you.
Thank you.